Hello again. It's Sunday, 10th of September. I haven't really done so much filming this year, partly with life, I guess. But the other reason's been that after our holiday, when we got back from a couple of weeks away, the garden was a bit of a jungle. But then we really had probably a few weeks to enjoy it, and then suddenly all the weather turned bad, and July and August were just wet, cold, miserable, so we didn't spend so much time in the garden. So although I have documented it, which you'll see in some of the other videos, it's not so much that's been going on. But now we're in September, and at the moment we're in record temperatures. It's about 32 degrees today, and has been for the last sort of 2-3 days. So I thought I'd show you a little bit of what the garden's doing now. But obviously it's just starting to turn now. You can start to see the leaves starting to go a bit brown. Everything's just started to realise it should, in theory, be coming towards autumn. But obviously this temperature is telling a lot of the plants otherwise. I'm going to start in the cottage garden because really this is where most things are still vibrant and in full flower. And you can see at the moment we've got a really good flowering of Michaelmas daisies. So earlier in the season they're nowhere to be seen, but they tend to start to grow up from sort of July and start to dominate by the end of July, beginning of August through September. And why these are really important is, as I'm sure you can see on here, we have got hundreds of bees all buzzing around and feeding on the flowers. So it's a really good sort of late summer, early autumn crop for pollinators. But we've also got a lot of other plants that have done well, but then have started to go over. So you can see the verbena is doing really well, and it's still attracting the butterflies in. And also we have some roses still flowering. We've obviously been deadheading them. I've still got to do a bit of work here. The Russian sage this year did really well. It's a bit slow to take off, but once it did, it really took off. And their echinaceas has done really well, but they're starting to go over now. And I'm probably going to start cutting them back shortly, but spreading their seed for next year. The geums did really well. Last year they were probably about 10 centimeters off the ground. These are huge compared to that. They're about ½ a meter, and they've really established themselves. Earlier in the year some of them were doing really well, but obviously they start to get swamped a bit by the Michaelmas daisies. But as you can see, the cottage garden at this time of year is just a riot of purple and a few reds. Yeah, so the copse has done really well this year to really just be more mature. You can see everything's really growing up more. The catmint did really well earlier in the year. It's now obviously starting to die back a bit. Still a few flowers there. But overall, the ground cover with the geraniums is really bushed up nicely. I'll cut a lot of this back once it starts to subside. Verbena's done well. And our rowans started to have some berries, which is really nice. So it's starting to get a bit of maturity there. Cherry's doing okay. Unfortunately, the Amelantia is looking sad, and we think it might be dying. We're not sure why, but we're going to have a look at that maybe next year, see if it comes back, and if not, we might need to plant a new tree there. We have had these staked now for a couple of years, so I think after the winter storms we will take the stakes away. You need to leave them staked maybe for a couple of years, but after that you need to sort of loosen them. By then they should be well established and can cope with the winds that come through. So the other thing that's doing exceptionally well is the hedgerow, but I mean, to be honest, I keep cutting it back and it keeps just growing at a ridiculous rate. But as you can see, this is the stewardship hedge, so it's a mixture of different beeches and maple, other dogwood, dog rose, etc. So you can see here some of it's just gone a bit crazy. I'm going to deal with that shortly. But what we do have is a bumper crop of rose hips this year, all the way along. You can see them everywhere. So again, great for the birds and the wildlife. What we've also noticed this year is we've got an awful lot more moths that are taking refuge in this hedge in the daytime, and that's important because they are also massive pollinators too. But you can see we just got so many rose hips, and we'll try and leave those until spring so that any birds that need this for a food source have got it. Then we'll tidy it up. I will obviously take some of these ridiculous growths and remove them, however. So then we move to the wildflower meadow turf, and you can see now most of it's starting to go over. This will probably get cut back in about 2-3 weeks time. Last year I cut it back sort of mid-September, around about now, but I think I need to leave it a little bit longer. There's enough going on here of interest for the insects that I need to give it a bit longer. But as you can see, we still had good growth here. We actually had a rain storm last night, so that's why some of it's been flattened a bit. And you'll also see spots of colour here. So this has been planted this year. You can see this, this is a climbing rose. We've had flowers from it already, but we're hoping this will start to go up the archway next year. And we planted another one in here, again for the same reason. We wanted to climb up the archway. We had a passion fruit in there, but it died off. Yeah, that can happen. So then we have the wildflower meadow by the pond. As you can see, again, starting to go over. The other challenge I've got is that a lot of it's grown over the boundaries, and to be honest, I've left it this year, but what I will be doing is cutting it right back to re-expose the boundaries as and when I've cleared it, and then I'll let it do the same thing again next year. But it has grown really well, lots of ground cover for insects. The birds I'm often seeing in there trying to rummage around and find things. And then we come to the pond. The pond's doing okay. Got a nice flower here. As you can see, it's doing really well. We've had 3 or 4 lily flowers come up, but what I would say as well is that what we haven't got yet are the frogs and newts. But having said that, we're still getting lots of dragonflies, mayflies, and lots of insects and birds in the pond and visiting the pond. So it's a bit of a haven for wildlife, really. It does come in. It's really nice just to watch them as and when they turn up. But again, you can start to see that everything's just starting to turn now, and we're getting close to autumn. Our bug house is done really well. You can see that I would say maybe 2/3 of the opportunity to lay eggs and fill have been filled. So they will probably hibernate in there over winter, and then in spring, as it heats up again, they'll come out and go into the big bad world. And then we have the back planted bed. It's done really well this year again. And then as you swing around, you got the verbena, got the wild grass, and this fennel has just been mental. It's done so well that actually, even with me putting in some metal supports, it's so heavy that it's actually even toppled that a little bit. But we're gonna harvest the fennel seeds shortly. I think they're almost ready for collecting. I think Hayley will have that on some of her cod, and it'll be nice. So although this is a wildlife friendly garden, that doesn't mean that you just leave it to run wild. In part you can, especially the meadows, you tend to leave it to run for the most part. However, you still need to clear the dead growth and if there's things in there that you think are starting to dominate, you'd need to remove them a little bit to give everything a chance for the biodiversity. I mean, the classic example here is going to be that this Hebe down here has gone massive. It's probably about 3 times the size of when we planted it. I'll probably have to cut that back a bit to allow the rosemary underneath a chance to expand and grow. Used some of it last night in our meal actually, which was lovely with our potatoes. And you've got the lavender. It's started to have a better year this year. The wallflowers keep giving, which is lovely to see, but you have to keep deadheading and just clearing away the debris. So it's not we plant it and then do nothing. You do still have to care for things, but it's done well. And then we have our teasels here, and they're stunning, but they're massive. So we've left 3 of them in, but actually we took another couple out because they were just dominating the area we weren't happy with. And we're hoping that in the winter this will attract in the goldfinches who love the seeds from teasels. Hopefully they'll be able to feed on this. They definitely checked it out earlier this year. And then you can go along here, you can see our Crocosmia here. The seeds here are just ready to fall out, so I'm going to collect some of them. Got a few friends who have asked for some if I can get them. We've got the smaller versions along here as well. Rebecca's are just starting to go over though, but our Clematis has flowered and it's really started to grow. I love it when they lose their petals, they look fantastic, but also really delicate flowers, again offering pollen to our insect friends. And it's doing really well, and everything's just looking a little bit more that it belongs here, with the exception of, well, whatever we keep planting in the corner seems to die, so we're gonna have to work on that. So final part, we're just coming along again. Here's the wildflower meadow turf. So even at this late stage in the year, you can see we've got these lovely little blue plants. No idea what they are. We've got some nice, we've had bird's-foot trefoil and all sorts in here. And if I swing round, you start to see, this is the second sort of flowering of the oxeye daisies. So once they went over, I cut them back, and we have had a second flowering of some of them, which has been lovely. And what we've also had this year is the Banksia roses really starting to grow now. So we're starting to get the height on them, and we're tying them along now, so hopefully next year they'll continue to grow up. We'll put some more supports in there, and ideally we'll get the whole of the side garage wall filled with the Banksia roses.